Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Powerful Man Show. I am your host, Doug Holt, with my co-host, Tim, the Powerful Man Matthews. What's going on, brother?
Very well. As you know, I just had an interesting experience at the hairdresser a few hours ago. But yeah, it was great. Enjoyed it. A great surrender.
Yeah, I've never had my face waxed, so it's an interesting thing as we go through this.
No, I have never had my face waxed either. So, yeah. Especially when you don't know it's coming, right? You just kick the seat back in the chair and then put like the hot towel on my face. I'm like, oh, this is cool. You know, I've never had that at the barbers before. And then he's like, oh, shall I tidy things up? And I'm like, sure, okay. So he gets to the razors, you know, starts doing the beard and then moves his way to the eyebrows and starts trimming them. And okay, And then I feel this hot thing in the middle of my forehead. I'm like, is that wax? And then about 3 seconds later, whoosh, oh, great, that's wax. The guy's just waxing my eyebrows. I'm like, okay, whatever. I was curious to see what I was going to look like when I came around from that. So yeah, I've got probably a 2-finger gap in between my eyebrows now, and I think previously I didn't really have a gap. So funny.
You look great. Next time, I suggest going someplace where they do men's haircuts too. we go to
I'll be
barbers
taking
here.
you there when you come over.
Yeah,
let's get your haircut before the Alpha Reset. I know the exact place.
Well, I do need a haircut, which reminds me, I'm one of those guys that waits weeks too long. You know, I always think, I should do this earlier, and it's not a priority for me at all. As we go
coincidentally, the hairdresser, I think I might have shared this with you, is turned out to be, I didn't plan on going to this hairdresser, right? I was in the fitness class last week. One of the guys there works there, and I thought, I need my haircut. I'll book in with him, right? Turns out the hairdresser is right next to the car garage that I've been trying to book in with to go and test drive this car that I want to get. And I've just kind of put that on the back burner. So today when I pulled up there and I saw the car, I'm like, okay, nice reminder. So it was great. It just gave me a little bit more fuel in the fire to go and really get a new car because, it's just kind of gone on the back burner a bit the past few weeks.
So someone that sells a car is called a car garage in the UK?
Yep.
Okay, interesting. I didn't know that.
Yep.
We would usually refer that to a mechanic, someone who repairs a car. We call them car dealers or dealerships that sell cars here.
Yeah, well, the people may call them that in the UK. I just call them car garages.
I had a feeling knowing you. Awesome. Well, hey, man, let's get on topic here because I think this is an interesting subject that I wanted to bring to the table. And because I've seen it a lot and I've done it a lot. And that's the idea of looking for validation. And we have a lot of guys as they come through the movement, that we call the powerful man. They're going through the activation method. They make a lot of shifts. I'd say a lot. They make some subtle shifts that have a big trajectory change in their lives. And a lot of us guys as men, the typical story here, right? You get married, right? You're in a serious relationship and you start to have kids. And over time, you start to maybe let some things go, right? You're wearing the holy sweats, the sweats with holes in them, the t-shirt from college. You start to put on a few pounds. And over a while, you just get a little bit more complacent, right? With your health, your body. And most likely, maybe there's those projects around the house that they're 70, 80% done, right? I know you can relate to some of this, Tim, as you go through and think about it, as you're going through it. And then what tends to happen for us guys is we start to say, okay, all right, I'm going to step up my game, right? I'm going to step things up. And maybe you join the gym. Maybe you decide, I'm going to work out. And you tell your wife, right? You go, I'm going to work out. Or even otherwise, maybe you've lost 5 pounds and you come up to her and you're like, hey, babe, I lost 5 pounds. And you're kind of showing her your shirt, how you look in it and everything. Or maybe you've taken out the trash and you normally don't. And you let her know, go, hey, I took out all the trash in the house today. Right. And another thing, or maybe you finish that project. Maybe it's the gate that needs fixed in the backyard. Your wife, you come home and you tell your wife, yep, I just fixed the gate in the backyard and I did this other project I was doing. All of these things are quests for validation, right? You're telling your wife, your spouse, your partner, I did this. Now I want you to validate me. Tell me I'm a good guy. Tell me I'm doing a good job, right? I worked on that project that I told you I was going to do. I finished the flooring, in this floor of the house, or I rechanged the oil in the car, whatever it may be, right? But we tell them from a place unconsciously to seek validation, right? Look at my abs now, I got them back, or look at the muscles, or something I told my wife, Tim, which is kind of embarrassing in the spirit of the subject, is I hit a record at the gym, right? Just for that day, right, of all the men that were competing, and I was proud of it, and I told my wife about it, and I was excited, and I was subconsciously, I didn't realize it till after it came out of my mouth, looking for her validation, right, to look at how amazing I am, her husband, being in it. And we go on this quest for validation, which we all do. Women do it as well. What we're doing is we're giving up our power, right? We're giving up our power to our partner. There's a difference between sharing and looking for validation, right? When we're sharing something, right, that's one thing. We're sharing our day, our experience. That's a context. But when we're looking for validation, we give up our power to the other person. Tell me I did well. Tell me I'm a good guy. Tell me I'm a good boy, right, for doing these things. And oftentimes what I see with a lot of the men, not necessarily as much the men in the program, but men on the outskirts of the program, guys that I run into socially, is they're consistently looking for validation from their wife. And what this does is it turns their wife off. It's the opposite effect, right? They're trying to act cool. Hey, I've been working out. Check this out. I'm going to do more around the house. It's the Mr. Nice Guy role, but it also makes them needy. And that's the key twist here, is that neediness, right? And before we go into it, at the end, I'll hear your opinion. Then I'll talk about what we can do as men to break this cycle.
Yeah, it's interesting as you're going through things. I'm like, I've been talking to Amelia with the open loops that I've got. The fence, check. I literally made a list of the open loops this morning. I'm like, right, as we were mapping out the quarter, right? Because it's one of the things we've got the meeting on this week. Anyway, I digress. But yeah, it's interesting as you listed those things off. Yeah, I've definitely caught myself doing this in the past. And for me, there's a couple of things that really feed into this. As I was thinking when you were talking, I'm like, what's the line there between sharing and being excited and looking for validation? And I was thinking about the times when I used to look for validation and then when I share. Often the difference is if I get triggered when I don't get the response I think I should get, right? So for example, obviously we've set a fitness challenge, right? And I've lost like 3 pounds this past week, and I'm excited about that. I'm excited. I'm proud of myself. I'm excited. It's great because I've pushed myself in my fitness, right? And yesterday was when I weighed myself, and I finally saw it really going down. So Amelia was like, "Oh, how was your day?" And I was telling her how the day was, and I mentioned obviously about the weight loss, and she obviously didn't. She didn't say anything because oftentimes, if I mention a result, there's not really much of a reaction usually. And in the past, if I didn't get the reaction, I would be pissed. I wouldn't act pissed in the moment, but the story that would be going on is like, when is she going to give me the respect? Or when is she going to, like you said, oh, good boy, well done, pat on the back, that kind of thing. And in the past, I would have sat down with her after sharing how my day was and sharing this particular result, but there would have been distance between us, right? Because I'd be resenting the fact that I'm like, don't you see it? Everybody else sees it. Don't you see it? I was thinking then about last night. When I shared it with her last night, I think she just said, she totally changed the subject. Totally changed it. I think she spoke about something else. And, it was interesting because I watched the trigger that used to be a lot stronger. the same trigger obviously gets triggered, but I was able to be like, just kind of see it rather than get sucked into it. I just let the conversation go where it was going to go. I didn't need to revisit the fact of what was going on in my fitness. It was really great that, I was able to do that, which then led to her later on bringing it back up. She then later on was like, oh, I think I'm going to join a gym and I think I'm going to do this. And I think, all those little ways where as I'm sharing what's going on from that place, it's impacting her, which is great. Whereas if I would have, like we said, give me the pat on the back, become needy, I think it would have, like you said, had the opposite effect and pushed her away, not had her want to look at her own fitness or bring it up with me. Is this making sense? I feel like I'm covering a few different things.
Yeah, no, it absolutely does.
Good.
And I think what we've said is the difference here, because I know a lot of guys are going to want this distinction. Like, okay, well, my wife wants me to share more and talk more, but yet I can't do this. And the answer is no, no, right? It depends on where you are, what stage of your relationship. So when I go back to when my wife and I were going through our issues, and the way that I transitioned at it. Now, remember, there was no activation method at this time. Otherwise, this process would have been much freaking shorter and easier. But one of the things I did is instead of looking for validation, I just went after it. My mentality was, how do I raise the stock value, the market value of Doug Holt? How do I raise that man, right? How do I become a better man? Because either A, my wife's going to love, admire, and respect me the way that I feel I deserve it. Or B, we're going to split up and I'm going to be back in the marketplace, right? Going out, meeting women. How do I raise the bar of, Doug Holt Enterprises, so to speak? And I looked at it very analytically like a business. And so what I did is I set out to make some big shifts and changes. And because of the fact that I was pissed off at my wife, I didn't talk to her about it. I just did it, right? I just did it. I went to the gym. I hit it hard, right? Going through it. And she just started noticing changes. And what I learned in that moment, Tim, is what I want to talk about to the guys, is because she noticed changes and I wasn't talking about it, it made it more alluring and sexy, right? I was being a sexier man, right? Period. End of story. And the fact that I wasn't going around bragging about it or talking about it, I became kind of that image you see in the movies of the guy. And this sounds horrible, but this is an analogy I've heard women talk about. A guy who is attractive but doesn't know it or doesn't act like it, or a guy that's smart and doesn't know it or act like it. I started to become more that guy, right? Not saying that I'm good looking in any way, shape, or form, but a better version of myself, as if I didn't know it. Like, this is just who I was. And it was that shift, that subtle shift of not needing the validation, kind of having engaged indifference of anybody else's reaction, right? I was naturally then put into my own power, right? As we talk about it, I was standing in my own power. People could have laughed at me, made fun of me. I didn't care. I was going for mine, right? And it didn't have to be about the 5 pounds lost or 3 pounds in your case, right? It didn't have to be about that. Although I could be proud of that, I was still on my journey. It was kind of head down, let's get this done. And because I wasn't looking for the admiration of others around me, the wow, Doug's doing such a good job, because I wasn't looking for that, that made me more attractive naturally, right? And so the signal, guys, that we send out to our partners when we start doing this, when we fix the fence, as you said, Tim, or we lose the 3 pounds or whatever it may be, the signal that we send when we don't advertise this regularly to our partners is that we are a solid man on a mission. We are on our path and we are unshakable, unwavering on this path. And that's, again, like the lighthouse, right? You have the tugboat and the lighthouse. We talk about this a lot in The Powerful Man, right? Both bring a ship to harbor safely, right? The tugboat has to go out and pull with force to bring that ship into harbor during a safe storm. But where the lighthouse stands strong and attracts the ship to safe harbor. Both serve a similar purpose, but do it in a different way. So when we stop looking for this validation, and we all need validation, by the way, and we all like it, right? You and I give each other validation. We give each other more shit than not, but validation, Tim, right? Because we're doing good, and it's a natural thing. But when we seek validation, is what I'm talking about. That's when
that's the
things can
key,
go.
seeking it.
That's when things can go awry with our partners, and we lose the alpha position, and we go immediately into a beta mode because we're handing over the power to the other person. We're saying, validate me as a good boy, as a good guy, or that I'm doing well. And I want you to recognize, because the other day, I had all these projects I wasn't doing. When we just do those projects, we're just the man that gets shit done. We're the man that takes care of his home. That's an identity play. The identity plays don't need validation. It's just who you
No.
are.
Yeah, it was the whole definition of being alpha, right? Part of being alpha is that quiet self-confidence, that quiet self-assurance. Key word being quiet. You don't have anything to prove, therefore you don't need people to be shouting, "Hey, look at you," And you said something before. The other piece to this is when you're deactivated and you're in that beta mode, you're living from the outside in, right? Have, do, be. Hence why when you do something, you then want the validation, because when you have the validation, you then do more of it because you feel better. You feel like you are on the right path, right? Your wife or whoever it is saying to you, "Hey, well done. Keep doing what you're doing." You're giving, like you said, that power away to them versus living from the inside out, be, do, have activated. You are on your path, you're on your mission, and you realize the journey is the destination, and you just keep going, right? For me yesterday, I wouldn't have brought that up with Amelia. I was definitely happy about when I realized. I didn't even realize, to be honest. I knew that there'd been some progress, and then when I looked at the tracking, I'm like, oh wow. Goes to your point, when you're on the mission and you're on the path. If anything, that's kind of, although I'm happy about it, it's also can be a bit of a distraction knowing that as well, because at least I'll speak for myself in the past when I have known things like that. And this is a different topic, so I won't go into it too much at all. But it's then easier to then make excuses. Oh, well, I'll just have that little bit of this. Oh, I'll just have that little bit of something because I'm doing well, right?
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so it's easier to not know sometimes. But yeah, when you are activated and you're living from the inside out, you are your own validation. Don't look for
100%.
it from others.
Yeah. And so another thing, guys, that we can do is we can do this on social media. Now, I want to stay mostly on the focus of how we do this with our partners, but guys, watch yourself on social media too. Now, if you're using social media for your marketing assets and things like that for your business, that's different. But watch if you're posting things on social media for that validation. Are you posting things on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, or whatever for that, just for that validation factor? Because again, that is going to lessen or dim your power and your light. I'm going to use an analogy. Imagine you got a buddy. All right, we're going to call this buddy Rick, right? And Rick is posting once a week, selfies at the gym, every week for 6 months. And you're seeing Rick at the gym, and Rick's posting his food, and I'm counting my calories, and yeah. And people are giving him likes and thumbs ups and comments and all that crap, right? That's one thing. Eventually, you're kind of getting tired of Rick's journey, right? Now imagine the same Rick who doesn't post on social media as much. And you have a picture of Rick who's there, is out of shape guy, at the beginning, like it was originally. And then you have another picture 3 months later with Rick and his wife, or Rick at the beach, and Rick's looking great. That's a wow factor, right? Rick didn't have to share his journey. He just arrived. Because when we look at this from an alpha male perspective, or for the reason I, brought this to the table, is what a lot of guys are doing is they're out there seeking the validation, which means I'm unsure of myself as a man, right? I'm unsure of who I am as a man. And therefore I'm unsure if I'm a good man, or, accepted, or I'm going to be loved, or I'm worthy of love. So therefore I need you, often the wife and the partner, to validate me. Some guys will go out and seek education. Some guys will go out and seek other ways of getting validation. Flirting with other women, it's a validation technique, right? When you're at Starbucks or wherever it may be, and you flirt with a woman that's there, that's, flirting with you for a tip, you're really seeking validation. Am I still good on the marketplace? Different story, right? There's some good reasons to do that, and there's some ones that aren't so good. But the key here is noticing why you're doing things, right, guys? Because with optics, once we know why we're doing, once we know we are doing something, we can then look and see why we're doing it. And now we can course correct if we want to, if we choose to. And even that course correction, if you're like me, with that course correction, that subtle change where you stop talking about your workouts at the gym, you stop talking about all the things you're doing around the house, right? You stop seeking validation. Your wife's going to take notice, because that's a change. That's a shift. And women are very aware of their environments naturally, right? They're just very aware of their environments. They've had to be, right? So they're going to notice that shift and that change within you. And that shift alone, from going from seeking validation to being on your own path, is going to make you sexier as a man, not only for your wife, but for the other women around the world that you run into, and more impressive to the men around you. So as a leader, it's also a great technique to just identify.
Yeah, great point.
So gentlemen, what I'm going to ask you to do here is, where in your life are you finding yourself seeking validation? Let's look at the 5 territories, right? There's 5 territories we talk about at The Powerful Man, right? There's self, there's health, there's wealth, there's relationships, and there's business. Is there one of those territories that's dominant for you that you're seeking validation in? Is there one particular area that you're really looking for validation? Is it in your health? Is it in your relationship with your wife? Is it maybe as a father you're looking for validation? Where is it for you? Sit down and think about this. If you're on the treadmill or whatever you're watching this, take time and look at where you're doing it. Now, what I want you to do, number two, is spend the next 24 to 48 hours and just watch yourself and laugh. Okay. So if you go to your wife and go, I just did a snatch with 140, kilograms or whatever it is, just laugh if you catch yourself seeking validation. So that's funny, right? That's great. Don't get mad at yourself, but note it. Okay. That's in the area of health. Got it. And the third thing I'm going to ask you to do is go over to our private community on Facebook and post what's going on for you. Post and share. Because once we have optics, by sharing it, what's going to happen is that's going to open up a new pathway for you, right? Because you're basically calling it out publicly, you're calling it out, and it's harder for the ego to hide. So there's 3 things. 1, you're going to look at one of the 5 territories, right? That this is actually happening to you the most. And it's probably going to be more than one, but what's the one focus? 2 is you're going to watch your own behavior for 24, 48 hours. Notice what the areas are that you're seeking validation. And 3, you're going to share that in a private community. Remember, the Facebook community, 1 is free. 2, it's also a secret group. So nobody can see that you're a member and no one can see your posts except for the other members. It is for businessmen, right? Married businessmen in there that are actually sharing and are looking at playing a bigger game like yourself. So Tim, as always, thank you so much for your insights and being here. Gentlemen, as always, I recommend you take action whenever possible. Don't just go from podcast to podcast or show to show. Take the action and take the steps, because I want the best for you. We're always in your corner, guys, and we'll see you next time, The Powerful Man Show.